Some things, whether it is in business or in life, there is no running away from them. You either adapt or you perish. I'm not trying to threaten you, I'm not trying to scare you, but all I'm telling you is the world is headed in the direction of data being at the center of your marketing. The closest that you could start with looking at data is GA4. If you're not doing that, there is no point of you having extraordinary amounts of tracking set up when you're not even tracking the basics of your data that you should be. And and the utilities of GA4 are many, right? I mean, when I say Google Analytics, for easy understanding, let's just say Google Analytics. We don't have to say GA4 every time. But Google Analytics is the closest avenues that you could get to data. And this is the easiest place to start with your data, to building your data infrastructure. Now, how do you do that is something that we need to look at. But before that, you need to understand that there is a series of things that you have to do. There is something called as a GA4 readiness checklist that I call, is to understand what are you getting into and what are the elements which are really, really important when you start looking at GA4 and experimenting with it. So if you are a business and if you have not done GA4 yet, you can't afford to ignore it for a long time, but this is for you. Now, if you start looking at your screens, you will see something called as an implementation guide, or for easy understanding, let's call it as a checklist, which you have to follow to understand what you're getting into when you speak about GA4, right? So the first thing that you need to be looking at is GA4 property. Let's close this. Okay, GA4 property and data stream configuration. You need to understand that when you get started with GA4 from Universal Analytics, or if you had no idea of what Universal Analytics is, UA is the older version of GA4. And what UA used to do is it used to let you create properties separate for your app and web streams separately. But GA4 is completely eliminating that hassle, and it gives you the functionality to create one data stream for everything. You can go ahead and create a web data stream if you want, or an app data stream if you want, or you can create both in one, which functionality, and that functionality was missing in Universal Analytics. Now, the first thing you need to do is you need to set up your data streams. You need to set up a new property, and an example of setting up a property would be setting up a property for your business website and calling it as a web stream, right? If you only have an app, if you're an app-only business, you will go ahead and set up an app data stream. If you operate both, like Amazon has a website and it also has an app, then you would set up one data stream, which is both web and app data stream, right? Now, once you set it up, you have to configure it, which means that you'll have to once you have done that, you need to make sure that the code, that the gtag.js code, the JavaScript code that Google Analytics gives you, has to go on all pages of your website. The second thing that we need to be looking at is event tracking and customization. Now, what does this mean? This is, as the name implies, event tracking and customization is you need to identify and configure key events. What events are you going to track? Are you going at tracking sales? Are you tracking page scrolls? Are you looking at click of a button on the website? Or are you tracking some custom events which are not predefined? What are you going to be looking at, right? So you need to configure those events. Then you need to be looking at your conversion setup. Now, define and set up your conversions. Event is an activity, any activity that happens on your website that you are interested in and you want to track. Conversion is what brings value to your business. Does a sale bring a value to your business? Does a sign up bring value to your business? And if you want to track these conversions, which you should, that's the whole purpose of looking at GA4, right? Or at least that is a bigger picture. You need to be looking at setting up these conversions. What is a conversion for you? Is somebody just coming to your website, looking at your web page and leaving the website? Is that a conversion? If that is not a conversion, then you define what is a conversion, because the GA4 at the end of the day is not a human and it is system, right? So you need to tell the system that when this activity happens, consider this as a sale, and it would do that for you. Then you have something called as familiarization, where you need to familiarize yourself with the interface. There is nothing saddening than having a piece of data that is being tracked, but just because you don't know how to navigate through the interface, you couldn't get past it. Now, that is probably a very weird scenario where a lot of things are being done in the background, but you don't know something like this existed because you're not very familiar with the interface. So you missed out on those pieces of data, which could make you a lot of money, ROI, whatever you want to call it. Then you have audience definition and creation. Just like you create audiences in your ad campaigns, whether it is Google ads or Facebook ads or whatever, you can also go ahead and create your audiences in analytics. Now, the beauty of doing this is you can link your Google Ads and Google Analytics accounts, and then you can start tracking the audience from analytics based upon certain goals that you have set up. You can also look at the events that resulted or that got the user closer to the buyer journey and how those events are performing as opposed to your ad spends. So you can get a complete picture of ads, analytics, along with events and other parameters. Now, this is something where you would have to go ahead and set up audiences in analytics. That is something that you need to be familiarized with. All right. For example, if you want to create audiences for repeat visitors or cart abandoners, how are you going to run? Let's say, you go to Amazon.com, you put in, let's say, LG ultra wide monitor. Maybe I should buy it next. And when you do that, you added it to the cart, but for some reason you did not go ahead and buy it, right? How does Amazon know that, and how does Amazon send you those messages or push notifications? Or why do you see ultra wide monitors ads wherever you go after that? And why do you receive an email after 2 days saying that you've got a 20% discount on the ultra-wide monitor? Now, this is happening because Amazon is proactively tracking the audiences who have reached the website to a point where they have added something in the cart and they have not reached the sales page. Amazon knows that through analytics platforms like these. Now, that is when your audiences is important to classify people on a lot of custom behaviors that you can decipher for your business or whatever brings you value. Then you have parameter and user property configuration. Most of the times we know results are coming in or results are not coming in, but we don't know what is causing it, right? Now, to do that, you need to be setting up proper parameters and define those parameters. Parameters are nothing but an event is happening and what are the elements or attributes of that event is called as a parameter, right? We would be talking about all of these things as we move forward. Whether you are a member of the analytics course or not, we would be discussing all these in the videos to come. An example of that would be tracking price parameter for a product click event. Now, you're tracking events of an event called, let's say, product click. How many people clicked on my LG monitor product on the website? And let's say there are 500 people. Now, how many people looked at the pricing of that, right? Now, that is exactly when pricing parameter is really important, and you have to set up and configure those parameters when you are tracking your data using analytics. All right. Then you have e-commerce tracking. If this is applicable, not every business may have an e-commerce setup, but if you have, you need to have an e-commerce setup, and then you need to have probably have integrations with your shopping cart systems. The best example that I can think of is people adding products to the cart and not doing anything about it. Or if somebody has added an LG ultra-wide monitor, maybe they would be looking at a new keyboard, right? Or maybe they're looking at a new mouse, or maybe they may be looking at a new webcam for that matter. Because people who buy these ultra-wide monitors are either people who are into gaming or into some sort of entertainment. And the next thing possibly would be to go ahead and pitch them or push them to buy a webcam. Now, you have created the audiences in GA4, remember? Now, using that audiences that you have created, if you have an e-commerce tracking setup, you can go ahead and cross-sell, upsell. A lot of things can be done with these e-commerce tracking setup, right? All right. Then you have data retention and storage management. You need to be familiar with how many days do you want to track this data. Now, analytics gives you the functionality to tell it to store your data for like 365 days, or people who have made purchases only in the last 30 days. You can do any combination that you want, and you can tell the system to retain data for X number of days, right? All right, so you need to be constantly testing and validating new ideas, new data points to see where your data is headed and how far are you and how are you faring in terms of tracking your data. All right, then you have testing, and you need to train your team because it is not a one man's job. It is not efficient when you are the one doing everything. You need to have a team in place, or if you have a team in place, it is very important that they get trained. All right, so try new things, constantly keep adapting and learning new things. Stay in tune with what is happening in terms of the new updates. GA4 is not something that is 100% foolproof tool yet. There are a lot of modifications and features that are being added. So it makes sense for you to go ahead and stay in tune with what is happening. Along the side, you need to be knowing who your stakeholders are, what kind of reports to be going to your clients, what kind of reports do you have to send to your management, your team reports, and you also make sure that right people have the right level of access, and you don't give access for somebody who don't need to have an admin level access, right? So these are pretty much what you would be talking about, or what you would have to be familiar with before you even get into GA4. By the way, if you have not yet gotten into GA4, it's the right time now. Just do it, because data is going to be very, very, very crucial for your advertising going forward. So I hope you are clear with the, what should I call it? The GA4 readiness checklist, for the lack of a better word. And if you have any questions about this session, please feel free to hit me up, and then we could discuss more and more and more about this. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, feel free to let me know, and I would be more than happy to help you as always. My name is Casey, signing off. This is Marketing Think Tank. Ciao.